All right, welcome back to another video by Dolphin Computer Services. Today we're going to be discussing the humble power supply and its importance in your system. So basically, this is what we call the standard ATX type, and this is what goes into your wall here. We have a standard D plug here. This is the cooling fan, and this takes 120 volts AC, and some of them even have a switch for the European 240 volt. And it converts it to 24, 12, 5, and whatever the computer needs in order to operate. So the computer doesn't operate directly off the wall. Power goes from here, it steps down the voltage, and then it splits it off into the various things it needs. Like this is usually for your SATA hard drives. Here we have a special connector. This one's a proprietary one, so it has all these kind of weird pins. This is a standard one. This is what we call a Molex. This is typically for like your older hard drives or floppy drives or even fans for the case. This one is for the CPU directly. Some of these are 6, 8, pins, usually graphics cards come with more pins. So the most important thing you need to recognize is the rating here. So as you see, we have 264 watts maximum. That's important because you always want more than what you're using. So let's say here that combined with your graphics cards, your DVD/CD player, your CPU, all your fans, and whatever accessories you have, let's say it's equal to 500 watts. You don't want something like this, which is small, because if you can always go bigger, but you can't always go smaller. So the reason why I say this is because if you go beyond this rating, which is 264 in this case, this power supply can't handle it, and you run the risk of breaking this power supply and shorting it out and then wrecking the whole system completely, which is something you don't want to do. It's very expensive. And like I said, this is the standard ATX. These are these are very user replaceable. In fact, one of the things I do is when a client has one of these that needs replacement. This one's from a old Dell that usually the office PCs, they have these small ones because they're not really doing much, if you're just using it for Microsoft Office and whatnot. But for the people, when I do upgrades to their computers, like let's say they're adding in a graphics card. In fact, I did one where he had a Lenovo ThinkCenter, and I upgraded not only his CPU, I upgraded it from a i3 to a Xeon. I also upgraded the graphics to a GTX 1060 6GB model back before Corona destroyed all of supply chains for graphics cards and people started hoarding them. I inputted a 500 watt one, and I believe I inputted I think it was 500 watts actually. Usually, like for graphics cards and stuff, any peripheral, they'll tell you the minimum wattage for for the power supply. The GTX 1060 6GB, I believe, was 500. And you could actually do this calculation yourself. You can go online, see how much wattage it takes maximum, add up all your wattage and see what the total is. But for really any case, I always go with 500 watts minimum, because to find a low wattage one like this one, if you do find it, it usually costs the same as the 500 watt one. And what's the point of paying getting less for the same amount of money? So why pay these are usually between $30 and $50. What's the point of paying $50 for a 265 watt one when for the same $50 you can get a 500 watt one? And going more, and you always, like I say, you always want to go over what you want, because if down the line you decide to do an upgrade, you know you have the power to back it up. And in fact, I made a computer where they had a 750 watt power supply. And fun fact, 745 watts is 1 horsepower. So they literally have more than just over 1 horsepower of electrical output in terms of wattage in that computer. And but basically it's okay to go over, because electronics will only draw what they need. So even though this thing can put out 265 watts, it's not always putting out 265 watts. So on idle, it may only use about 70, and then under full load, it may only use about, 205, something like that. So going more is always better than going under. And these things do die. There's a lot of capacitors in here. Even the cable, I had one experience where the cable was shorted internally and it caused this to explode. And I was in that room, and for a whole week, it was a good friend of mine, a whole week his room smelled like burnt computer. And in fact, the only reason why I found out that the cable was bad was when I plugged in that same cable into another machine that used the same D plug, and it refused to work. And I remember I went to every wall outlet, didn't work, and when I changed the cable, it worked again. So that's how I knew that the cable was bad. But so yeah, these things, they do die eventually. They're easy to find. You can go to Best Buy or anything. Usually I don't order these. I pick them up same day for my clients, because these things, like I said, they're easy to find. They're relatively inexpensive, and it's a convenience thing. You get your computer back the same day. But this is a very important thing in your computer. Without this, your computer will literally not run. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you have yourselves a good day, folks.